And welcome back, everybody. Got a couple of New York issues grabbing headlines, and I'd like to get the table's take on this one. First up, the Tappan Zee Bridge. Did you know that 18,000 bridges coast to coast in the country are fracture critical? That's not a good heading to have, and the Tappan Zee, one of them. So there are efforts underway to build a new one. Now, you have to be living under a rock if you haven't heard the debates about this, but we all know the following. It will cost a lot of money. At least $5 billion, and I think some of those estimates are being conservative. Once construction is completed, tolls will go way up here, talking about nearly 3 times what you already pay if you're coming from the Rockland side. And although most can agree that the bridge needs to at least be fixed, the project is beset by questions like, why aren't federal funds included in the project? Should rail be included in this? And should the state offer toll discounts to Westchester and Rockland residents, especially those that can prove hardship here? Congressman, I'll start with you. What do you think is going to happen here, and who ought to dig in their pocket to pay for it?
Well, obviously, there needs to be a new Tappan Zee Bridge, obviously. We don't want to ride on a bridge that's structurally unsound, and there needs to be a new bridge. In the perfect world, I would love to see certain kinds of transportation, mass transit on that bridge, whether it be railroads or designated bus lanes. And now we're talking about designated bus lanes, but that would also increase the cost, and it would also increase the timetable. And we don't have a timetable, quite frankly. So I think that the governor is just talking to the administration and trying to come up with the funds necessary, the federal funds. There should be federal funds for this.
You think there will be, though?
I think there will be. I won't pay for the whole project, but I think that there will be federal funds that will help pay for it. And I do think that the average person is, willing to pay a little bit more. Frankly, I think the amount that they're talking about is much too high. I think it's not fair.
Well, Dom, let me ask you. You'd be one of those guys. Would you pay $14 every day to pay for that toll? That would kill you, wouldn't it?
Well, first of all, every day that I come over that bridge, I'm wondering, am I going to make it? Because it seems like it takes forever to get from one end. It seems like it takes forever to get from one end to the other.
That's right. 2.6 miles, I think.
And so I'm wondering, am I going to make it to the other end? And then I start thinking about, I think it was Minnesota where the bridge collapsed. But they're talking about $14 a pop.
And that's without mass transit, something like
and
22.
That's right. And if you add mass transit, they say the cost would be triple to get this done. So I mean, I'm just like everybody else. We got no choice. What's the alternative? To go to the Bear Mountain Bridge, spend 3 times the amount in gas,
can swim.
And then
you can swim. I've seen you in a bathing cap. Exactly. Yeah, brother. All right. Now this next one, there's a policy issue, and then there's a practical sense to this one. We talked about this last night. The Longacre Theater on Broadway, currently home to Mike Tyson's one-man show called Undisputed Truth. I think I'm the only one who really wants to see it. But anyway, it's now at the center of a frightening threat. According to the NYPD, an anonymous person used Twitter to threaten to kill people at the theater. Tweets said, among other things, quote, "People are going to die like Aurora," and that person is also making reportedly a hit list. Police taking these threats obviously very seriously, especially after all the recent shootings in both Colorado and Wisconsin. When then NYPD originally requested that Twitter reveal the identity of the account holder, Twitter refused. But now Twitter's hand's been forced after receiving a subpoena from the Manhattan DA's office. Twitter gave in and revealed details to help identify the person behind the threats. The person's Twitter handle is, by the way, Obama's mistress, from whatever that's worth. All right, Congressman, we all believe in privacy, even though those rights are being infringed on a regular basis. But should Twitter have withheld the identity here, and I'll ascribe motive out of liability concerns, or should they have turned it over, or should they have waited, like they said, to basically say produce a subpoena?
It's a very fine line. It's very difficult. I am a civil libertarian, and I hate like hell to have these things fall into hands. On the other hand, we're New Yorkers. We remember 9/11. We're living in an age of terrorism, and I think a little common sense has to prevail.
And what would it have been here?
Well, I think Twitter should turn over. This kind of a threat, Twitter should turn over. But I also want to say, we better get some sensible gun control legislation in this country, or this is going to happen again and again and again.
And real quickly, would a cybersecurity bill that's stalled and sitting there in Congress, if that was passed, would that have addressed this?
Well, I don't think there's any magic bullet. But I think it needs to be passed, and I think there are lots of things that need to be passed. I think that we need to stop shaking in our shoes about the NRA, and I think we need to stop saying that we're going to put our head in the sand. We need to have a sensible balance. I think that's what the American people want. And while certain instances we may not like what we have to do, we've got to give the people who keep us safe the tools to continue to keep us safe.
I think that's a good point to end. Congressman, thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right. Now, when we come back, we're going to turn to that issue of sports betting and focus specifically on New Jersey, the state being sued over its plan to allow sports betting in the Garden State. And that's what we're asking you to sound off tonight, 387-666-2428. Here's our question. Should states be in the business of not only sanctioning gambling, but obviously getting some of the tax revenue as a consequence? Call in. We'll get you a social reaction as well. Stay with us.